Guess who's back? Back again. Mary's back with another episode of Something's Gotta Give. What's going on, y'all? I hope you've been doing okay. I have been hesitant on making this episode, and the reason being is because I am still learning how to create in my 100% authentic self without the thought of other people involved in my art. See, being a person who often used to worry about others before myself, I allowed that to get in the way of anything that I was. It hindered me as a person, especially in my art. That's why I used to not create at all, which obviously led me to being an addict. But now I'm no longer that person. It still takes a long time to heal you and to become different. And so with today's episode, I've been hesitant because not only is my podcast so vulnerable on my personal stories, but understanding that other people play a part in my stories, I often prevent myself from speaking to save those characters in my life story. But see, the thing is, I'm never telling in a place of gossip, and I never share names. So just that alone, I have to go ahead and create this because a week have gone past and I didn't sit down because I was too worried about someone else. And yesterday passed. We know that I usually drop on Mondays, and I didn't record because I kept trying to find another topic. But this is what's on my heart. And until I get this off of my heart, I won't be able to move on to the next subject. Now that right there is a lesson. And I haven't even really gotten into the topic of what I want to talk about. But the moral of just those few minutes into my podcast is when someone has that much power over your art, that's not healthy. And you have to be able to gain the confidence that this is not for them, this is for the betterment of you. With that being said, I'm going to share a story about closure on some friendships that was much needed. And it was with my childhood best friends. I have had a couple of childhood best friends because I moved around a lot, but this specific group of people were friendships that I carried on with me into my adulthood, even from moving from one city all the way across country to where I stay now. And it was the first time that I was essentially in a three musketeer group. Anyone who has experienced being in a three musketeer dynamic, unfortunately, is always 2+1. But 2+1 doesn't always equal 3 when it comes to friendship dynamics. And what I mean by that is oftentimes there's two people that hold a closer bond than they do with a third person. I always found myself to be that third person. But because I never received the attention and the love that I needed as a child, I learned a habit of fighting for attention and fighting for love and overcompensating myself just to win the compensation of someone else. So maybe subconsciously I found myself in competition just so it could give me that sense of dopamine of if I won, or when I did get those moments where I felt like I won, I felt good about myself, right? I felt rewarded because I'm finally getting that attention. That's essentially the dynamic of a friendship that I was in for a very long time, say over 7 years. And I'm thinking that these are going to be my lifelong friends. But oftentimes forever does have an end. It's an ugly truth, but it's a truth that you have to come to terms with. And when you honor the truth of that, the easier it is to start something new. the longer it takes for something to close, the longer the new takes to come in, because you have to allow space. So with this group of friends, I began partying with them when we all turned 21. These were my group of friends that I always went out to day parties with. We did the crazy Boston Marathon thing, waking up at 6 a.m., drinking at the crack of dawn. We always went out. It used to be maybe just Thirsty Thursdays and throughout the weekends, and then somehow, some way, it ended up us finding a way to drink every single day. And these were also the people that I smoked ounces upon ounces with, 4 or 5 blunts a night with. And eventually I didn't move out of the state, but when I went home, it was like the party never stopped. And one person in particular, I would stay with her at her house, and demolishing 4 bottles of wine in a night was our norm. We had drinker's tongue, and it came a point in time where I share often that my drinking got ugly. And I noticed the pull away from my friends. One person had already been pulling away as soon as I moved because they had their own life going on. But there was one person who did pour into me a little bit. They would come visit me and we would spend hours on the phone, but I started to notice that there was a bit of a distance when we would separate. So when I'm not in our hometown or she's not visiting me, we would go quite a long time without speaking to one another. And I was very sensitive to this. Back then, I did not know how to communicate or just be upfront about, hey, what's going on? Because I had my whirlwind of problems going on. So I could not address anything outside of my PTSD, my trauma at that point in time. I was just trying to figure out what short-term relief was going to help me feel better. And at that point in time, it was my drinking. Now, there was an incident where one morning I woke up super hungover from the night before, and I was blowing up my friend's phone, and she finally answers, and I see that she's with an ex-partner who I had no idea she was still seeing, because she had painted the picture to me that they were done. I spoke out of term in front of her lover, saying that she needs to do X, Y, and Z. Basically, she needs to lock in, and why is she with this toxic relationship she knew she shouldn't be in? I myself was in an on and off again toxic relationship. I myself am obliterated calling you, but everything that came out of my mouth was true. Was it spoken at the right time? No. And I'll take full responsibility of that. But because my friend had her limits with me that were kind of piling on top of each other, that became her final straw with me. And she had contacted me after she hung up the phone on me, because I obviously created a mess between her and her lover at that point in time. Because not only am I talking to you crazy, now I'm talking to her crazy. I don't remember me saying this. But she tells me that the next morning, after she hung up the phone, she's texting me and she's telling me how messed up I am for calling her, creating a problem with her lover that morning. But she's also saying a boatload of things that have been going on underneath the surface of our friendship that she never spoke on until she hit her boiling point of being angry with me and decides now is the time to speak on it. See, but I'm once again not coherent. So I'm not able to engage with her in a healthy manner. So we're going back and forth, and I'm talking to my friend crazy. I'm saying things that I don't mean, and I was being quite evil to the point where she had to block me. And now I find a different number to message her on, and I'm blowing her up that way. Eventually, she takes note to just no longer give me energy, because clearly I'm not in the right state of mind. But after that, I realized, what did I just do? But I also realized I'm blocked from her. And so now her and I both have 2 different stories on why we separated ways. Now the 3 musketeer part comes in is the other friend who was in this friend group stopped talking to me because I got into a fight with her. So now I just lost two of my best friends within one fight, and one of them stopped talking to me, and it has nothing to do with her. And I had to deal with this for 2 years, and I made peace with it. And as time went on, it became easier, but I still had that lingering question of, why was I the only friend that became ostracized? I wasn't the only one that was drinking out of my mind. I wasn't the one who did drugs. I wasn't unloyal. I wasn't telling any lies the day we got into a fight, because eventually her and that person did end up no longer being together because of the reasons that I stated. Not all of them, but you get what I'm saying. What I said was true, and in the end ended up being right. But I was the one that was carrying the load of feeling left out, feeling like I've been dumped in the rain. And sometimes with closure, you don't always get that. And sometimes you have to make peace with what's happened by yourself. And I found myself doing that. I also remember in that point in time, I was praying to God to remove all places, people, and things that no longer served me. And what do you know it? Before I know, I look up and anyone I used to call friend was taken away from me. So I understand that God works in mysterious ways, and I'm not trying to question the greatness of what's happening for me. But I can't deny that it's very painful. Now, I just celebrated my 2-year sobriety mark about a month ago now, and I went home to visit my father. I wanted to spend my 2-year sobriety with my father, who has over 10 years sobriety under his belt. I think he might have more than 15, to be honest. And I don't attend AA, and I don't have friends that are sober. And so sometimes I have to just connect with my dad, because he is essentially my sobriety buddy in a way. So I went home, and when I went home, I felt like it was finally time to visit those doors that just had been to be slammed shut at that point in time. Now, in the steps of AA, there's 12 steps. And one of the steps is to make amends with the version of yourself that hindered relationships, and to own up to how you showed up in those relationships, and to make peace and to ask forgiveness. And regardless if you follow AA or not, those 12 steps can be applied to anything when it comes to healing, to be honest. Healing from any substance, or just trying to evolve in the development of character, because the 12 steps is a very spiritual experience. So as you begin to heal and elevate in life, it's a spiritual experience. So I was called to attend to that step where I wanted to revisit these friendships that knew me to be a very hurt version of myself. Now, because of other connections that I may have had through shared friends, we both would hear about how one another is doing, but her and I, both of them, had never had a sit-down conversation one-on-one. But the time had finally come. So I meet with both girls, and I do it separately, because I was finally able to be honest with the fact that 3 musketeer dynamics are never going to be successful for me. I am very much a one-on-one type of girl, and I succeed on one-on-one friendships, and I feel like there is so much more connection in relationships when it's one-on-one. I'm sorry, my neighbors were talking outside, and I just really want to focus in on what I'm talking about. Forgive me. I am more present, and I feel like I have more success with my friendships that are one-on-one. And even though it used to be the 3 of us, we fell out because it was the 3 of us, which didn't make sense to me. So if anything's going to happen moving forward, it needs to be one-on-one. So I sat down with both of them, and I had conversations with both of them. Now, going into this, I knew that I needed to put my ego in the back seat. Because one thing that I heard from the both of them when we were in contact was, I carry myself as if I'm better than, and I'm in a position where I'm trying to teach, but I'm also losing my mind at the same time. So they couldn't take me serious. And I know if I showed up entirely as a person I am today, giving pieces of advice, maybe I wouldn't be accepted, because if you weren't able to receive me back then trying to help you, how could you ever receive me now with 2 years of sobriety under my belt? So anything that I used to struggle with that you knew about, I'm healing from. And I'm glad that I did this, because it allowed me to really be present with who they are. See, now I understand why God made that severance for me. Sometimes things get taken away from us with no explanation. But I got to see why when I was there. The conversations didn't end badly. It was actually a very healing thing for me. I got the closure that I needed. But what I was able to see is everyone is moving in their own direction of life. One thing that I know to be true is it is very vital for people to experience something else outside of their hometown. The smaller the hometown, the smaller the mindset. Sometimes it leaves you not so goal-oriented. Maybe it limits your capabilities of really going after your dreams. Maybe it helps with continuing generational trauma. It keeps you small, is essentially what I'm saying. I have very big dreams. I wish for millions of people to see my videos. I wish to grow in how I deliver my messages. I wish to further my education. I wish to break every generational trauma that's ever been passed on to me. I daily am taking the steps to build a relationship with my inner child. For me to be doing that, I have to create a tribe that reflects what it is that I want. I say that if I meet new people, it's because, one, you are a safe space for me and you allow me to be me 100% authentically. Or number two, you are here to teach me, to put me on to something, to help me elevate in this life. I can't say that my friends share the same admiration for me. But most importantly, with these friends, they did not see how they played a part in enabling my behaviors when I was an addict. I had a friend tell me that she did try to talk to me when I was actively drinking, and that I would just bounce off whatever she was saying to me back to her because she was partaking in those activities with me. And she still sticks with that narrative, not holding up the mirror to her and seeing how you did actively play a part. How could anyone take you serious when you're trying to tell them about themselves when you look just like them? How can you try to teach me about a new religion, put me on to new habits, new ways, new patterns, when I know nothing about my life is the same as it was 2-3 years ago when we spoke, but there's a lot of the same things going on for you? In order to elevate, we can't take everyone with us. Being a balloon is much lighter than being a brick. And to move up, sometimes you have to let go of things. When you buy a helium balloon at the store, they give you weight with it. Because if you let go of the weight, the balloon floats away. Now it's in a new surface. It's in a new climate. It has new things that it's exposed to. It's the same thing with the spirit. And being back there, I saw why I had to let go of some bricks. Another painful thing to experience, but you have to accept, is sometimes your valley is others' peaks. Your darkest moments can be the highest of someone else's. You ever met someone and they're still talking about how they were the quarterback jock of high school and they'll never let go of the good old days because that was their peak? But then you can look at someone else and they could say their high school days was the valley. They were the ugly duckling. They had a terrible home life. They had no sense of self, and they're in their 30s and their 40s and they have everything that they've ever dreamed of. Everything is in waves, and everyone serves a purpose in this life. And nothing is better than the other. Everyone plays a role, good and bad. There's a yin and yang. It's all needed to create life for what it is. But in my personal journey, I finally got the closure to the question of why take the friendships that were closest to me, that hurt the most. It's also part of my journey to be able to endure such painful experiences, to be able to alchemize that energy into something better. So now moving forward, I have space for new friendships, but I also know my identity and how to keep my own identity when I create a bond with someone else. Another thing I struggle with is codependency. And any other friendship that I've had in the past, somehow, some way, was codependent. If you wanted to do something, and I know I didn't really want to, but it would make you happy, I would often do what you wanted to do instead of me. I now know to not do that. And if I catch myself doing that, I correct myself. Sometimes many people can't have relationships unless it has a codependent dynamic to it. And there's different levels we're all called to. I have been called to the role of solitude, the role of understanding self and how I can integrate self into other communities without losing myself. Understanding when I need to go back in to pour my cup so I'm able to go back out in the healthiest version of myself. It still is a little painful to see the people that I grew up with and had such a huge space of love for them in my heart come to terms with what I envisioned for them may not be what they envision for themselves, and what they may act upon, what they choose to involve themselves with. I have to also honor that what I thought our friendship would be like isn't the truth of what it is. The idea of what we have and God's actual plan, or the universe's, whatever you want to call it, plans for us sometimes looks much different, but it is so much better. I can't say I would be the version I am today in front of you if I didn't allow the greater picture to make an interference on what I was trying so hard to hold on to. And it still hurts me that what if one of them was to hear about this and they don't understand and I may hurt feelings? That's also not my job to continue protecting other people at the sake of me not being able to tell my truth, tell my story. So this is for any of the people who found themselves in friendship dynamics where they never felt like the one that was loved the most, seen the most, heard the most. You were placed in that so you can become that for yourself. You're always going to be put in things that always give you bare minimum until you learn how to give that to yourself, and do things get so much greater once you do. Not only that, I have a message for those who struggle with closure. If you are in a situation where you may never receive closure, tend to the part of yourself that is looking for connection again. Answer why you're looking for connection again and figure out how you can give that to yourself. Now, if you're able to receive closure, make sure that it is just that. Make sure that it's not just an excuse to open up a can of worms again. Make sure you go and you receive what it is that you're looking for, whether it be just the answer of, was this the right decision? It should be that. Is this the right decision? Was this the best thing that was for me? Do I need to leave this here so I can continue on the path that is meant for the greatest version of me? Once you receive your answer, honor it. Because if you don't, you'll remain in the same place, in the same cycle, until you do make peace with it. Life feels long, but it's so short. In the present time, it may feel long, but you ever look back and say, wow, time flies. I can't believe that was 5 years ago. I can't believe that was 2 months ago. I can't believe that was me 2 weeks ago. Keep that in mind when you're making a decision to either stay or let go of something. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast, listening to me, listening to my stories, and healing with me. I send you love, light, courage, and wisdom on whatever it is that you're embarking at this point in time. And just know that you have the courage and the strength and the wisdom within you to make it through. I'm so excited to share yet another story with you on the next episode of Something's Gotta Give. Until then, y'all have a great one, okay? Bye-bye.